Brighton Terrier, surely the most famous class of Victorian steam locomotive preserved in Great Britain today. 10 of these magnificent engines survive out of a class of 50, built by William Stroudley at Brighton between 1872 and 1880, initially for suburban traffic on the lightly laid South London Railway and then the East London Railway. Following a very successful career, some of the engines were sold to minor railways. Others saw service on motor train use. This picture of Box Hill shows the engine temporarily converted from 060 to 240. This engine, now based on the Bluebell Railway in Sussex, shared duties with Knoll on the very last passenger train to be run on the K&ESR Sussex Railway on January the 2nd, 1954. These scenes are from the Western Cleveland and Portishead Railway. Although rather grainy, they do show a Terrier in use. Note the children on the right hand side of the picture. The Edge Hill Light Railway. 2 Terriers were kept here. And of course the K&ESR Sussex Railway. A scene at Bodiam Station, probably Knoll. And here is Bodiam number 3, as restored at Brighton. We believe this picture is of number 5 Rolvenden. Here are its discarded side tanks. And of course the Hayling Island branch, a Terrier haven right up until closure. The Isle of Wight Railway also sees Terrier operation today. Many of the Terriers preserved today saw work there. This is Fenchurch, the first engine to be sold by the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway to the New Haven Harbour Company. These rare scenes are important for the social scene as much as the engine itself. Here are some early scenes from the 1930s of Lancing Carriage Works. The locomotive in use, 680S, is the former number 54 Wadden. This engine is preserved out of use in Canada. A scene at Biddenden Station and Bodiam at Rolvenden Station. We believe this rather grainy colour picture is of Stepney working on the K&ESR Sussex shortly before closure. A general view now of Tenterden Town Station with the long lost second platform. Here Bodiam 32670 is attached to its one coach train. At the southern end of the line it is seen shunting at Robertsbridge Station in the bay. The last train in 1954 was worked from Robertsbridge by number 32678 Knoll and Stepney. Brighton Works with 377S or number 35 Morden shunting. Sadly, this engine did not survive for preservation. Note the blanking off on the side tanks where the condensing gear used to be. Here we see Morden working the Kemptown branch. In August 1956, the Centenary of the Caterham branch was celebrated, again using Morden. This is the scene at a Brighton Works open day. Fenchurch in BR livery. And Box Hill, the first officially preserved Terrier. This locomotive is now on display at the National Railway Museum in York. An excursion run on the 19th of October 1958 was the Rother Valley Limited, hauled by Wadden. Leaving Robertsbridge for Tenterden. At Northiam, Rolwendon, Tenterden Town Station. After the K&ESR Sussex Railway closed in 1954, a daily goods service continued between Tenterden and Robertsbridge. We'll see a goods train worked from Tenterden by Fenchurch. Here we see the engine running light at Rolwendon. Running into Northiam. A spot of shunting. Then working into Robertsbridge. Here's Fenchurch shunting at Robertsbridge. Now we switch to the Hayling Island branch. Knoll being watered. and backing onto its train at Havant. Working across the wooden Langston Bridge, weight restrictions were the reason why Terriers continued to work this branch line up until closure in 1963. A petition was launched to try to save the railway. .32650 Sutton is in use today. And a wonderfully evocative backlit scene as the train crosses Langston Bridge. A farewell rail tour was organised. And here we see the special train working through Langston Station. This train was top and tailed in true light railway style by the two oldest locomotives in BR use, Fenchurch and Bodiam. Both locomotives had come from the original batch of 6 Terriers in 1872. The bark of the Terriers to be heard no more, just the squawk of the seagulls. We now switch to the Bluebell Railway with early scenes at Sheffield Park and Horsted Canes. Note the electric train running in the background off the Ardingly branch. May the 17th, 1960 was a very important day for railway heritage in this country because Stepney entered preservation, hauling 2 coaches off the Ardingly branch The train is seen here entering Horsted Cane Station. Another view at Horsted Canes with the electric train about to depart for Haywards Heath. And some wonderful colour film of Stepney and Bluebell topping and tailing the Metropolitan set. A timeless scene at Horsted Canes. Now the train is working south again, back to Sheffield Park. Here's a scene of Fenchurch on the Bluebell. Now we switch to London for a very special, very sad occasion. This was the South Eastern Limited, organised by the Locomotive Club of Great Britain, the last trains over the Hawkhurst branch and the Cantonese Sussex Railway. Paddock Wood, Hawkhurst. 31065 is of course now on the Bluebell Railway. Here's the motive power at Roberts Bridge, Bodiam as 32670. And Martello 32662. This locomotive worked the Tenterden end of the train, Bodiam worked at the Roberts Bridge end. Two of the coaches had to be removed, but 7 coaches must surely be a record on the Cantonese Sussex Railway for 2 Terriers. The middle coach, incidentally, was Pullman car Theodora, which can still be seen on the railway today, the long forgotten Junction Road halt. Bodiam Station, again a scene much changed today. Distinctive scenes at Northiam. Close-up of Martello. Note the cyclists after the train clears the crossing. Walmden Station, nothing left apart from the water tower. And across the busy A28. St Mildred's Parish Church. Photographers everywhere. Health and safety would have a field day today. Martello at the north end of the station. Note the patches on the side tanks where the condensation gear used to be. Back at Robertsbridge now as the train works in off the curve, headed by Bodiam of course in this direction. The two coaches which had been detached earlier now of course had to be reattached. Note Bodiam's distinctive high bunker and the sandboxes at the front of the train, distinguishing it from all other Terriers. Robertsbridge A box on the right hand side. And now the special works back to London out of the down platform. Not forgotten, the two Terriers shunting the yard at Robertsbridge. To be culled by hand before the journey back to St Leonard's. Now a series of shots taken at Eastleigh. Showing various Terriers in action. Charlie Kensley on Bodiam. Which one would they buy for preservation? No choice really. Early preservation scenes on the Centenary Sussex Railway. And here is Sutton in action at Robertsbridge. The Terriers had a 12-foot wheelbase, and as we'll shortly see, they didn't like particularly tight curves. Wonderful scenes at Robertsbridge in early preservation days. A brief view, Butlins, Ayr. This scene features the Woolwich coach. This coach now features on the railway's vintage train. The little engine working here is called Marcia. It too is currently under restoration. The two Terriers together. At Tenterden Town, Bodiam and Sutton work smoke box to smoke box. working out of the loop at Tenterden. Of course, the Nissen huts in the background are still there today. Northbridge Street. Working the Pullman cars, and again on Albin's Curve with Sutton in charge. Top and tailed in true Cantonese Sussex style by the two Terriers. That's Arthur working with Bodiam. The Great Western Railcar number 20 features in this scene at Wolvenden. There's Sutton again, and Marcia. An important series of scenes now. This is the very last scene working to Roberts Bridge, 1967. Locomotives and stock had been hired by Granada Television for a play called Sarah. preparing for the filming in the rain. Passing the H-class tank. This locomotive is now preserved on the Bluebell railway. Curving away from the main line at Robertsbridge. The Terriers had limited, or have limited, water capacity, just 500 gallons. The classic Centenary Sussex picture. Number 3 Bodiam with a 1-coach train. Now back at Tenterden. Number 10 Sutton working in the yard. Note Robertsbridge A box just on the right hand side there. Before the railway reopened, various trial runs were undertaken. On some of these workings, the public were carried. About to cross the A28 at Wolvenden. And here is Sutton, just about on the limits of its ability, hauling a 2-coach train up the 1 in 50 Tenterden bank just below Cranbrook Road. Sutton's cylinders were sleeved to 12 inches for auto train working, and this meant the locomotive was slightly underpowered compared to Bodiam and Knoll. In poor weather conditions, nevertheless makes a clean restart at Cranbrook Road. Another picture of Sutton on trial run, filmed just east of Cranbrook Road crossing. Here we see more learning trips in the Wolvenden area.
Inspector hadn't got much of an idea himself.
For flying trains, I think, is the best description.
Yes.
Wittersham is inspector, passing out 4 be our drivers, who will then be our instructors. Yeah, the instructors will then train our drivers and firemen.
I'm not sure whether propelling like this would be allowed today. Final polish and bill deeds declares the railway officially reopened.
for banking, yes, there's nothing like a train. When I was a young boy on a train spotting trip to Crewe, I'd lean against the wall with a thermos flask and I'd watch the trains go through. Smell the steam and coal and the smoke and look for the sparks and flames. Smell the smell of the lubricating oil, but I'll never see them again. Give us back the old black fives and take away the trains that smell like tractors and look like buses and sound like aeroplanes. When did you last see a semaphore signal or a gantry over the train? Or roasting coal in a firebox setting the world aflame? Give us back the old black fives and take away the trains that smell like tractors and look like buses and sound like aeroplanes.
1975 saw the 150th anniversary celebrations at Shildon of the Stockton and Darlington Railway. Of course, Terriers had to be represented, and Fenchurch did the class proud. Note the Stroudley bunker with the toolbox. Sutton's own centenary was celebrated in 1976. Note the Great Western Rail car pressed into service as an extra passenger coach. A lovely A1 Terrier model. Boating was out of use at this time, having been withdrawn in 1977. 1977 saw the reopening of the line to Wittersham Road. Sutton and number 19 Norwegian double-headed the trains. A new bridge had to be built over the New Mill Channel, and here we see the first train working to Wittersham Road. (1984) was a very special year for the K&ESR Sussex. In June, the railway celebrated its 10th anniversary. Now we move to another haven of Terrier operation in Britain today, the Isle of Wight Railway. Here we see number W8 Freshwater working into Smallbrook Junction. This locomotive features a brand new boiler, like number 3 Bodiam. These were built by Israel Newton of Bradford. the old station. Now we turn our attention to Knoll. These are some very rare pictures of the locomotive on the West Somerset Railway. The engine would have been too small for regular operation due to the severe gradients and length of line, although the engine did visit the railway in 2004. Now we will see some scenes of Knoll being restored to traffic in the shed at Rolvenden. Initially privately owned, this magnificent locomotive that first came to the K&ESR Sussex Railway in 1940, just before the Battle of Britain, is now owned by the Terrier Trust. Here we can see the engine almost ready to be returned to service. Various bits of pipework still to be fitted. We were lucky enough to get some pictures of trial runs. Here we see the engine working light near Wittersham Road Station.
Oh, we're going to go back to Rolvenden now to put it over the pit, take the drain cocks off to blow some more of the muck out. Then we'll be back out here in about an hour.
A very clean and new Terrier. The additional steps at the front of the engine were acquired during its time on the Isle of Wight. Heading back towards Rolvenden. The railway was able to extend to Bodiam thanks to a grant from the Millennium Commission. Adrian Landy checking the axles, the hot boxes and the Westinghouse air pump. Tony Pearson working the water crane at Northiam. And the new signal box at Northiam Station. As part of its running in, the engine worked a ballast train on the uncompleted extension between Northiam and Bodiam. Ian Hislop, editor of Private Eye, relaunched Knoll back into traffic in May 1999.
I launch this
Number 25 Northiam was also rededicated the same day. And here we see the two locomotives working together on the railway's famous vintage train. April 2000 was another special time for the railway. Knoll and number 25 worked the official reopening train, 100 years to the day since the line was built. In 2002, a locomotive shortage led to the hiring of Fenchurch from the Bluebell at short notice for the Thomas event. This engine had been recently restored in approximate A1 condition. The loco never carried the number 672 in its active career. The engine had to be fired up to move it.
Look at it, up there, it's been on the side there.
Working into Centenary station, the loop, with the railway's P-class locomotive, number 753. After the Thomas event, Fenchurch stayed for a short while to work the vintage train.
Mummies and daddies, boys and girls, now the 10:45 departure actually is coming in the platform.
The story of Bodiam since withdrawal has been a very sad one. Note its derelict state. Here's a picture of the new boiler. And new side tanks.
Yes. So this is for number 3.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So they're hoping to see that in the summer, aren't they?
That's right. Well, we were expecting to finish this in February and do the next tank in rather quicker than that in March in April.
Oh, I see.
There'll be a one-off job lot out.
Mate, look, difference, isn't it? Really like that.
These are the brackets for the activating the water inlets.
Oh, well, that was out
In the tanks.
for number 3 outside.
Yeah, for the tank, yeah, outside.
Yes.
The newly restored frames. And a new raised bunker just like the old one. Now in 2003, for the 100th anniversary of Tenterden Town Station, Knoll ran as Rother Valley Railway number 3. Here we see the conversion from 2678. A rare view of Sutton as 32650 at Tenterden Town Station. The engine has since been moved to the Spa Valley Railway at Tunbridge Wells. Here's a recreation of that first train 100 years ago working into Tenterden Station. And later the scene at Rolvenden. Notice how much the scene has changed here over the years, with the fully signalled passing loop. From time to time, the Terriers are used for filming purposes. These scenes date from January 2006, when Knoll and a mixed train were hired for the Railway magazine series Britain's Steam Railways. The day started very cold and wet, but fortunately the sun came out later. The cameraman wanted some unusual angles. Noel sets back onto the mixed train at Rolvenden. Having run as Rother Valley Railway number 3 for the Centenary celebrations, the engine has since run with its BR number of 32678. A classic K&ESR Sussex Railway mixed train. And rounding the curve in fine style, ready for the assault up the 1 in 50 Tenterden bank. We refocus now on Bodiam. These scenes show the boiler being placed in the frames. New side tanks.
Looking at the fire bars, make sure everything's in place before we set the fire. Check the arches.
Oh, it says a brick arch, yeah?
Yep.
The vintage Ford diesel is on standby to move Bodiam if necessary.
Is that just all need power pin?
Yep. This is what we use for. It's been used this morning for cleaning.
For cleaning, yeah. Well, that's right, isn't it?
Perfectly good for this. It's still.
Yes. Plenty of. Then the flame thrower.
Yep. Flaring. If this doesn't work, I'll have to go and call the Boy Scouts to help me, I think. Once it gets going, we'll be away.
Yeah, slightly damp, isn't it? A magic moment.
I hope so. Sincerely.
Oh, very important moment. Very symbolic.
Yeah. Very symbolic.
The first fire in its belly for 20 years.
Yep. And she was in the frames anyway. I think she had a fire for the boiler test.
Oh yeah.
That line is pushed good, man.
I'm going down. Yeah.
Now we see scenes of Bodiam being pulled out of the shed at Walmenden for painting. This was carried out in the carriage and wagon workshops at Centenary station. The two Terriers together for the first time. The Ford diesel was used to propel Bodiam from Walmenden to Tenterden. Just after crossing the A28 on Orpin's Curve. And entering Tenterden town station. During the open weekend in March 2006, visitors could see the engine being painted in the shed.
Coat on you, have you?
Yes.
I have.
It's the first one.
Right.
At Shunter Dover Castle is used to drag the Great Eastern Coach and the resplendent Bodiam in its new livery out of the carriage and wagon shed. Bodiam steam test. Here is Tony Pearson of the Terrier Trust.
Well, we're sort of 99% there, aren't we? Just got to fix this pump regulator, and then hopefully we can give it a run. I've tried something and it makes an improvement.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Oh, damage the bloody diaphragm now. Between the diaphragm and the...
Oh, I see, yeah.
And they're there.
Because
that's assuming the wrong profile, isn't it?
Go on there, Emily. Come here. Have a look. Look, it's a big train. On the 4th of May, we see Martello being offloaded at Wittersham Road Station. There were a few technical problems.
Because you've been putting it back in your pack, haven't you?
It shouldn't be.
Well, these are always tight to get on, Wilf. The space in here is not a lot at all. This way we can only reach back as far as the die blocks and the expansion link.
You can't tow it dead, can you, because of the oil?
Yeah, it's got a hydrostatic lubricator, and basically it needs to feed the front end.
I mean, the damper's going to need some attention when we get it back over a pit. And I mean, the damper won't shut now, but we've moved it a bit.
What's it a bit about the damper then?
The damper was damaged when it was loaded at
Birmingham,
yeah. The damper, if you look through the middle wheel,
yeah,
you will see where it's bent on the eccentrics. The big end has come round and clattered it one.
Yeah, the flappy one. Theoretically, it shouldn't move. Could be on there. I think we're going.
These scenes show Martello arriving at Rolvenden behind the 08 shunter, Dover Castle. In the evening sunshine of May the 4th, all 5 terriers are lined up on shed at Rolvenden. Noel, Bodiam, Stepney, Fenchurch and Martello, another first in Cantonese Sussex history.
Protected the front, Heidi, we're alright.
We'll get you on. Yeah, I see. Oh yeah, maybe. I didn't know when they did that.
Heel to ground, over. Here is now on the move. Thank you. Where are you going? Yeah, when I went up there.
This is nice, isn't it? It's perfect. Well, is your door locked?
I don't know, you have a look for me. This is probably my last shot, mate. Off the engine. The fireman's got off the engine. She's picked up something. Picked up a hat. Well, a woman's hat is very important to her. Destination was with that.
Is there another one? I don't...
First straight away, just an overhaul.
It's going in the station now.
I'm going on this. Where's the man that's it?
Running around the train and bonk onto the train.
To commemorate or to celebrate the naming of this engine, I'd like to thank the members of the Terrier Trust for their sterling efforts in contributing to the restoration of this locomotive. A dedicated band of volunteers has done the work, and I congratulate them on it.
The Kent and East Sussex Railway plays a very important part in giving us successful tourism in this eastern end of the county.
It's a tough one. It's when it goes, it's really going to go. A little bit more to do. Thank you. Well, that's very, very kind of you. Thank you all very, very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
One for Piers.
One more.
Thank you. That's it. When it's gone, it's gone.